I'm your number one fan.
When most of us think of danger, we think of hate, we think of harm, we think of someone who doesn't care about our well-being in any way. But Misery shone a light on a different type of terror, being held captive by someone who loves you so much that they have no desire to ever let you go. They can't be bought or bargained with, as they only want you all to themselves. When Rob Reiner decided to translate Stephen King's novel into a film, there were many casting possibilities tossed around. For instance, Bette Midler and Anjelica Huston were both offered the role, but turned it down, and that was probably for the best. As for a movie about toxic fandom, having a recognised star playing the obsessive admirer would really take the audience out of it. It would run the risk of seeming funny, or like a commentary on fame by famous people, rather than a dark thriller. So for the story to have maximum impact, they needed to find someone with the acting chops to pull it off, who was still somehow unknown. In 1990, Kathy Bates was mostly working in Broadway and popping up in small TV roles here and there. She was far from a household name and had never even had a starring role in a movie before. But Misery's screenwriter William Goldman was a huge fan of hers, and it was now, at the age of 41, that she would deliver an iconic performance that would not only change her career, but earn her an Oscar for Best Actress. Unlike the other casting considerations, Bates brought a much more intimidating physical presence to the screen. She was a powerful figure to overcome. To prepare for the part, not only did she and the director write an abusive backstory for the character to humanize her flaws, but she also read about psychopaths in depth to try to understand how they think.
I read books about Ted Bundy, books about kids who have problems bonding when they're children. Just different kinds of books about people that murdered.
These two opposing pieces of preparation really shine through in her performance, as there is this vulnerable side to Annie with a childlike sensitivity, but also this cold, detached side that will do anything to get her way. These two contrasting parts of her personality are hard to reconcile, and you never know what small slip-up might trigger her vicious temper to take over. Due to the unpredictable power of Bates' delivery, Annie Wilkes is still held up as one of the greatest movie villains of all time. So let's take a deeper look at what made this performance work so well. The first key is eye contact. In film, eye contact is the fabric that holds a relationship together. It tells us everything we need to know. If the characters look into each other's eyes and smile, the connection is strong, they're on the same page. If neither can look at one another, the relationship is falling apart, and if only one can look at the other, then it's either imbalanced or the disconnected character has something to hide. They're lying. If I were to sum up Kathy Bates' performance in one word, it's contrast. Not just because of the competing parts of Annie's personality, but in how the two actors play off one another on screen and how differently their characters view this situation. One is living her dream, and the other is trapped in a nightmare. 95% of Misery's story takes place in one house with just two characters. So if either actor underdelivered or phoned it in, the film just flat out wouldn't work. But to understand how each character feels in this dynamic, we just need to look at their contrasting use of eye contact. From the beginning, when Paul first wakes up from his accident, notice how Kathy is constantly looking right at him. This communicates her character's devotion and loyalty to Paul. She can't take her eyes off him. Whereas Caan plays it the opposite, he can barely meet her gaze. His focus is on himself. We see this pattern continue into the next scene. Her eyes are still on him, his eyes are on the pills or looking inward. Then later, after she gets angry at the foul language in his new book, she unexpectedly tells Paul she loves him. And just notice how Caan instantly communicates his character's unrequited feelings by simply breaking eye contact.
I love you, Paul.
This tiny gesture is all we need to see how Paul really feels behind the pleasantries. But Kathy also uses eye contact to demonstrate her character's insecurity. Once she doesn't get the response she wanted, she looks down, then away, and then has to turn her back entirely. So the rejected feeling is progressing and deepening as her eye contact becomes more and more disengaged. Earlier in this same scene, she struggles to make eye contact when she's preparing to give her favourite author criticism. Now, without needing to hear a word, notice how Kathy is communicating a break in her devotion to Paul with her lack of eye contact. Her line of vision is now focused on the soup, not him. This is because she didn't like what she read, and therefore she doesn't view him the same way anymore. She's shunning him. But then before she delivers her feedback, Kathy finds this natural way to express her character's hesitance so that we can feel her humanity.
It's all right, I can take it.
Well, it's brilliantly written.
This may seem small, but these are important creative decisions. This little internal conversation the character is physically having with herself before speaking really helps us to connect with how she's feeling. As if ashamed, she looks down and licks her lips like she's preparing the words to come out. Meanwhile, she blinks while still not looking at him. And these blinks show us that this is taking an emotional toll on her. She's wincing. Then notice how she has this false start to speaking before she forces the words out. This is how you make scripted dialogue feel authentic. One of the biggest mistakes for actors who have over or under rehearsed is that they sort of look like they're reading their lines out of their memory. They don't feel in the moment as the words come out too crisp, like there's no verbal processing taking place. Whereas here Kathy punctuates her dialogue with all of these physical symptoms of emotional distress, so that we feel what her character feels rather than just hearing what she's saying. And that leads into our second key, vocal performance. In terms of vocal pitch, there are many different shades of Annie Wilkes. Part of what made this character so terrifying is that she's got the naive innocence of a child and the lack of empathy of a psychopath. When she's filled with joy, she's like a kid at Christmas, high-pitched and energized. Then when she fawns over Paul, the actor adopts this dramatic, overly sentimental tone like she's some sort of cheesy daytime TV star.
Oh, Paul. Oh, Paul. Oh, Paul.
As fake and insufferable as these sides to her personality are, this is very much the best case scenario, as once we swing into negative territory, she becomes a danger to everyone around her.
I know you don't love me. Don't say you do.
There's her heartbroken, dead inside voice, where she sounds completely disconnected from the concept of happiness to the point you realize she has nothing to lose. Or there's the ranting and raving hurricane of anger, where she starts childishly impersonating other people as she gets louder and louder.
In the bank, do I tell Mrs. Bollinger, oh, here's one big bastard of a check, give me some of your Christing money?
If Kathy couldn't make these explosions of anger believable, the whole movie wouldn't work, as again, it's just two characters in a house talking. So to make her vocal performance feel more human, Kathy shows us how rattled Annie is by having her trip over her words at the start of the sentence.
In the bank?
This little nuance makes it feel like the dialogue is naturally tumbling out of her mouth rather than being perfectly delivered by a polished actor. Lots of iconic villains have distinctive speech patterns, but they're often distinctive because they're so consistent we could easily do an impression of them. Whereas here Bates offers up a wide range of vocal performances that keeps the audience on their toes, as they never know which version of Annie they're going to get when the changeover happens this fast. And that leads into our final key, how Kathy makes her character feel uniquely unhinged. Annie Wilkes suffers from no self-awareness. She has the mind of a child in the body of an adult. So when she flies off the handle, Kathy has to completely let loose and allow the dialogue to just fire out of her unencumbered. But to showcase that she's drifting into deranged territory, she widens her eyes and breaks eye contact to look off to the side, as if she's lost focus on anything and everything that matters because the rage is too all-consuming. This adds an uneasy feeling to each scene, as this woman is not only emotionally dysregulated, but has incoherent sensitivities. And yet my favourite aspect of this performance is how Kathy delivers some of the coldest lines, like "if I die, you die," with this intense, unbroken eye contact. This is very intentional, because by not blinking, the actor is showing us her character's single-minded intentions. As we saw earlier, blinking is doubt, it's weakness, but no blinking is not just strength, but certainty. And when I watch Annie Wilkes in Misery, I'm looking at a brainwashed cult member who has no doubt in her mind. Like here, watch how Bates combines intense eye contact with a deadpan delivery to create a haunting degree of certainty.
You and I were meant to be together forever. But now our time in this world must end.
This cold, detached tone actually makes it scarier than if she delivered these lines with an emotional inflection. As if she had any detectable emotion at all, you could perhaps change her mind, as you would see you at least had something to work with. But in Bates' performance, no. She has an unshakable, unbreakable belief that both of them need to die together. Kathy Bates explained that Annie isn't a monster in a horror movie, she's a human being who is a psychopath. And that's really clear in how she chose to play the part. She didn't just serve up another cold-blooded killer, but a sensitive child, a loyal devotee, a brainwashed cult member, and an unhinged lunatic, all bundled into one. And the results are truly terrifying. As in Annie's mind, she's not hurting you because she hates you, she's saving you because she loves you. Well, if you've made it this far, firstly, thank you for watching, but if you could now give the video a like, possibly even leave a comment and click on that subscribe button, it will encourage that mysterious algorithm to do its thing.